and welcome to the Council meeting of Wednesday the 16th of October. And welcome councillors, staff, media and all those who are listening in from home. We're having a reasonably full-on day today with a couple of visitors coming in. We've got Hamish Maher from New Zealand Agricultural Trade Envoy. He's going to come and tell us about what he's been doing for New Zealand from Mid-Canterbury. And at 2:45ish, we've got Business Canterbury with Kylie Charteris coming in to talk about the program she's been working on for us. The other thing I'd like to mention is the rugby, and Mid-Canterbury Rugby did very well on the weekend in Timaru. Beat the South Canterbury team by 1 point. It was a great game and puts them in the final for the Meds Cup in the Thames area this Saturday. So what we're planning to do with our new library and the big screen we have down there is at 2 o'clock on Saturday the game will be on the big screen here in the library. So if you can't make it to Thames area and if you don't have Sky Television at home, you can come in here and watch the game live at the library. So it'll be something to look forward to on Saturday, and hopefully they bring the Meds Cup home back to Ashburton, which they had I think in 2013-14. So the best of luck to them. Another milestone is October, and which means we have 1 year to go until the next election. So councillors, all those things you wanted to do, which are progressing very well, 1 year to complete them before the new training starts with a new team around this table. So we'll move on now to apologies, and you will hear, so there is none. Extraordinary business, I know of none. There is none. Declarations of interest in today's items on the agenda, none. So we'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes on the council meeting 2nd October, page 3. And just discussed whether those minutes are correct or not. On page 3, page 4. Page 5. We'll move in a second that the minutes of the 2nd October council meeting be taken as read and confirmed. Councillor Wilson and Councillor Cameron. We'll put that motion all in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Let's move on to the item number 5, the Stockwater Transition Working Group minutes. And they are there. We'll have a move in a second to that we receive them. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Wilson, all those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Just on page 7, under communication and engagement, the last little couple of lines there, that we're giving assurance of consultation and finding solutions. I just want to get the meaning of that, because I thought there were some areas where we might not be able to find the solution, but that somebody else might. But I just want just to get a better understanding of that, because I thought there were some areas that was going to be very difficult.
Perhaps we won't know until we get to there to see if a solution can be found. Councillor Wilson, did you want to comment?
Yeah, the reason we're putting a transition plan in place, which will be hopefully in place before Christmas, and that will allow the people the consultation. That's perhaps where the consultation happens. It allows them to recognise where they can be involved and then be involved at that point. And the other word was for
finding solutions.
Finding solutions is the council has resolved to get out of operating Stockwater by 2027, and the finding solutions is quite an open term, but it's not the council doing it effectively. It's other, people doing it perhaps.
Thank you. Any further questions on the working group minutes? No, if not, we'll go over to item number 6 on page 8, Creative Communities Grants Assessment Round 1, and we have a report there with a recommendation that we receive those minutes. Is any discussion on them? Look, Councillor Todd, you're moving. We receive.
Yep.
Councillor Lovett, that we second.
I'll second.
I'll put the motion that we receive them. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Gets carried. Any questions on them? Councillor Lovett?
I was just asking what Heather Milne does It's just a name, and I was just wondering what she is tied up with, or what does she do? Does anyone know?
Application number 4.
For
Who's on the working group could possibly tell us? Councillor Todd? Or Councillor Brown was there too. Councillor Cameron, you
I'm
do
not
know?
on the. I'm just asking. I'm not on the working group.
Not sure.
I
Councillor-
don't know what the answer is. I've got a question.
Okay, if we're not sure on the answer of that, we would have to find out. Question, Councillor McMillan.
And I just looked at the conflicts of interest and they just seem to not be quite right. So I guess that will be looked at down the track. They just-
Can we give them direction as to what the
Well, Kate Bowman-Smith is a member of the ceramics and pottery group.
They might be around the wrong way.
Yeah, I just
okay,
wonder if
righto.
it's so.
So we'll
I'm
make
guessing
note.
you'll look at that at your next meeting.
Yeah, we'll make note of that for them. Councillor Cameron?
Just a few. May I ask you a few questions? There was $41,000 worth of applications for the grants, and we administered 24,000 of the 25. I'm guessing. And I see that the Mount Hutt College mascot got nothing, and the mural project got half of the allocation, and some people got it all and some people don't. What is the decision making behind that? Is it just a discussion regarding the merits, or is there some sort of framework that's used? How is that actually done?
Sure, they have a terms of reference. Tony?
Thank you, through the chair. So yes, Creative Communities is administered by this group on behalf of Creative New Zealand. There is quite a firm set of criteria and rules that go alongside it. So each application is assessed against those, and the officer's recommendation is made to the group, and then the group sits and debates how and what money to give out. The $40,000 is across 2 funding rounds for the financial year, so they tend to ideally give out half at this point and then half for round 2, which will be around about February, March 2025. And just with regard to Heather's application, it was for a project called Inside Stories, Ashburton District Photography Workshops and a community exhibition. But unfortunately, the application was for funding costumes, and that was ineligible under the criteria of the Creative Communities scheme.
So Heatham's was for funding costumes, is that correct? Or the Methven mascots for funding costumes?
Sorry, I've got that incorrect. No, Heather's wasn't. You're right. It is the Mount Hutt College didn't receive any funding because
and they don't fund for costumes.
That's correct.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you. Just 2 questions for myself. As Wellbeing Opuki Charitable Trust, Give It a Go Mayfield, Give It a Go Methven. What is that? What will they do for that Methven Mayfields?
I can tell you
Okay.
because I was there. So they do children's events up at at the Hall in Methven, and then they go to the Mayfield Hall, and they're supported by the library staff here, the art gallery and museum, and different other organised. So it's like a 1 day or half a day holiday program for children. And it's very, very well supported by lots of families. They've run it just about every holidays, I think, for the last year or 2.
Okay, thank you for that. That's good. Good work. We've received those minutes. No further questions. Thank you. We'll now move on to welcome Hamish Maher, who is New Zealand's agricultural trade envoy. You're in that role. So come forward, please, Hamish, and you're going to give us a speech about what you do for New Zealand when you travel overseas as a trade envoy and local person representing Mid-Canterbury and New Zealand, so a very powerful job. And just let us know how you've been going. You've been in the role for probably 18 months or slightly more. Yeah. So, right-hand button there, Hamish, great. And the floor is yours, and just tell us, we're 20 minutes or so,
Yep.
or less, and we'll have some questions, I'm sure.
Thank you very much, Neil, for the invite. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. It's the second or third time I've been to council in varying degrees. First time as trade envoy, so thank you very much for the invitation. I have got about 5 PowerPoint slides. Would I be able to plug my computer in somewhere?
Yep.
Just so I can talk to a handful of numbers.
Got someone coming over right now to assist with that.
We probably should have been on to that, shouldn't we? We'll make it work. I have. Oh, there we go, perfect.
Excellent.
Right, here we go. So, look, yeah, thanks again for the opportunity, Neil. I have this wonderful job as the Special Agricultural Trade Envoy, as the Mayor rightly introduced me. First and foremost, I'm a farmer in Methven. We grow, that's our farm there, looking up at Mount Hutt. The thing about Mid-Canterbury is, wherever you live, there's a different view of Mount Hutt. That happens to be our view of it. So I'm the 5th generation on our family farm at Methven. I'm there with my brother, and my mum and dad are still there. I'm married with 3 children. So farming is certainly first and foremost the job that I do. Actually, Liz took our children at Play Centre, so that's my connection to the council. But I have a job that I was appointed to 18 months ago as New Zealand Special Agricultural Trade Envoy. Now, this is a ministerial appointment. I am probably the 5th or 6th iteration of the Special Agricultural Trade Envoy. And essentially, I'm the independent voice of the New Zealand farmer to our government, to overseas governments, and to New Zealand, to anyone who's buying our product overseas. Now, I'll come to the reason in the next little bit why that's so important, but my role in that is to essentially ensure that New Zealand's agricultural story is told with some authenticity, that quite often the producer's voice in meetings overseas and with governments is missing. So I represent the New Zealand farmer to the governments here and overseas, but totally free of politics. So I was in Federated Farmers, and I've been in the Foundation for Arable Research, and I've done a Nuffield Scholarship, and I've been involved in agricultural politics to a certain degree. I've had to park all that so that I can truly just literally be the voice of the farmer. It's a wonderful role. I remember when they rang me up and offered me this job, I felt like I'd been named in the All Blacks. And then not only that, it's felt like I'd been named as the captain of the All Blacks. So that's the degree or the seriousness to which I take the job that I have. And to a certain extent, the way to think about the job I have is to think of me as the ambassador of New Zealand farming. So this job sees me around the world 5 or 6 times a year. I accompany the Ministry for Primary Industries and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm funded, probably it's a 50-50 joint venture between MFAT and MPI that funds me. My role is to be across all of the issues at a high level in agriculture, so that's regulation, that's the laws that we have, that's across what the sheep sector are doing, the dairy sector, what the Ashburton District Council are thinking about. You know, farming's a funny thing. It's not just about producing crops or producing milk or producing things. That agriculture is so important to our country that I have to ensure that our government is totally across the ecosystem of our agriculture, fits into how our communities work. So that's one of my key roles. Another one of my roles is to ensure that people offshore that are buying our product are across the fact that we are not a subsidised nation. So there's only us and Australia and a handful of South American countries, put the developing countries in Africa to one side, but there's only a handful of developed agricultural nations that don't provide their farmers with any subsidies. So we're one of them. So why is this important? And I mentioned it before. 82% or 81% of our export revenue in this country comes from agriculture. So without we get the agriculture piece right, essentially the country falls over because we have got nothing else. We're geographically constrained. We're a long way from anywhere. Most of our country is mountainous, and we've got a very, very small population. So the degree to which I have to ensure that I get my job right, it's pretty important. And I certainly feel like I have the weight of all the people in Mid-Canterbury sitting on my shoulders that, that we do get it right, because the money all comes from that 80% of trade coming from agriculture. And if you think, I thought about it on the way here, everything that we do now, the money's going offshore. We've got no car manufactured. The car I drive is made offshore. The phone I use, all these clothes I wear, Tony, you'll know this, everything is made offshore. So everything we do in our lives, we're sending money out of the country. So we've got to get that piece. We've got to get that piece right. Look, I can skip over the what we do, because I think you're probably all over that. The importance of agriculture, actually what we've got. The only thing that's wrong there is the sheep numbers are down to about 20 million. For those that aren't involved in agriculture, we peaked in sheep in 1981, I think, at 72 million, and now we're down to about 20. So hence the reason we all know about the Smithfield Works closing. It's just one of those things. This is the key slide that I really wanted everyone to see. And we hear all the things about dairy dominating things, and how we're an agricultural powerhouse, and we totally are an agricultural powerhouse. When you look at that middle column, New Zealand's share of world trade, you straight away think 35% of the world's traded dairy comes from New Zealand. But it's actually a reflection of the fact that there's only 5 million people in this country. So we're essentially, we're about half the size of Denmark as a country, to the fact that in big countries, Australia, the US, Brazil, a lot of big countries with big populations have an accumulation of, or security accumulation effect built into the fact that they've got a population that can absorb the fluctuations in international price of agricultural goods. We don't have that. So as soon as there's a blip in the commodity prices, the people in the supermarket in New Zealand feel it that day, because we haven't got the domestic population to wear that. And that's shown on the right-hand side of that, the share of domestic product exported. So we export 95% of our dairy, 80% of our beef. In fact, the beef thing's higher than that now. 90% of our sheep, it's all exported. So I guess what I'm trying to say in all that is that we are very vulnerable to the fluctuations in international markets by virtue of the fact that there's no one living here. Now, it's a beautiful place to live, but we've got to get the agricultural piece right. I guess that's the thing I'm trying to get across. The last slide I'll show you before I talk more about what I've seen and things is just the way our markets have changed over the years. So that on the left-hand side, I think it's in 1965, the majority of our product was going to back to the UK. In 1975, in the early 1970s, when Britain joined the EEC, it really changed the way we produce food, because all of a sudden New Zealand can't afford to be subsidising its farmers anymore. New Zealand had to go to the world. We're in the free market, so we've had to diversify our markets. So we fast forward to that's 2020. And we have all those pretty colours there with China being the light blue at the top. Now the number for China is not quite right. It's about 30% of our product goes to China. But the interesting thing is that the European figure, the light blue one, has dropped right down to 11%. So what we've gone and done in that time is we've diversified our markets, and we've found new markets, and that has kept us in nice cars, and it's kept us in good state of housing. If we had have stayed producing food for Europe, we'd have been in trouble. So that's essentially New Zealand's agricultural scene in a nutshell, or the important bits about trade. And my take home on that is that just the importance of agriculture to not only the Ashburton district but to the country as a whole. And if we get the agricultural piece wrong, then we're down a rabbit hole, and it'll be very, very difficult for us to get out of. So then I don't have to talk about the Ashburton district. You can tell me. It's a lovely place to live, and it's a lovely. We're blessed in mid-Canterbury here with this tremendous temperate climate. It's actually the thing that makes New Zealand as good for agriculture as what it is. We're right in the middle of the temperate zone in the southern hemisphere. Good soils, good climate, it rains, good farmers that are devoted and looking abroad at where our options are. So that's what makes the country good. What makes mid-Canterbury particularly successful as an agricultural hub, if that's the right way to say it, or a province that's very good at agriculture, is the fact that the Canterbury Plains are the biggest area of flat land in the country. They have the Southern Alps to the west, and it rains on the west coast. So we have an abundance of very good soil, and coupled with good water, good farmers, and we can do anything in mid-Canterbury because of those three things. So those are the three things that make mid-Canterbury what it is. Now, if I'm allowed to say one thing politically, it's that even in the 20 years that I've been farming, farmers had a certain degree of agility in the fact that I could be growing wheat today and I could be growing kale tomorrow. Nowadays, if I'm growing wheat and I want to grow kale, I have to ring Environment Canterbury and ask them permission. Now that's not a great position to be in, because the thing about, and coming back to what I said before, New Zealand is very much an export orientated market, and markets change. So we have to be able to follow the markets, and to be able to follow the markets, we have to have a certain degree of agility. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need any regulation that follows with that. I just think that the regulations at the moment have got too tight, and farmers have lost their ability and the degree of agility that they have, or that they have had. So that's my only political thing, if I'm allowed to be a politician. Yeah. So what do I see overseas? The first thing I would say about what I see overseas is that New Zealand is held in the highest regard in terms of that photo there. People look at New Zealand, and I think Tourism New Zealand have done a wonderful job. They see blue sky, blue rivers, green paddocks, and we have a tremendous reputation that what is written on the box, when they open up the box, that's what's going to be inside it. So we have a tremendous reputation that we've had for many, many years on integrity of our people and of our product. So that's the first thing, and that actually, to be honest, that makes my job as the trade ambassador really easy, because we've got a head start. The challenges I see around the world, and this is post-COVID, and particularly there's wars going on in two places, and there's political unrest. There's political unrest in the United States, Europe. We've got all these different things going on around the world, and we've got protectionist governments now, where once we had open borders and free trade between countries, we haven't got that to the same degree now. Countries like the United States, for example, Donald Trump openly talks about the fact if he becomes the next president, he'll put a 10% tariff on every import coming into the country. So that's a 10% tax on everything we do. What does that mean for this country? It basically, no one knows for sure, but it basically wipes out our agricultural import to the United States, because that's our profit gone. And then we've got the EU, who have gone down a rabbit hole of environmental protectionism, and I don't know if you've heard of their Green Deal or their deforestation regulation, where now you cannot, or by Christmas time this year, unless they change it, you cannot import anything into Europe if it has been deemed to become from deforested land. Now, we've got no problem in this country because we're afforesting, if there is such a word as afforesting, that's what we're doing. The challenge for New Zealand is we can't prove it. So we know that we've got bush and we've got forestry going on, we just haven't been collecting records. So from Christmas time onwards, the Europeans won't accept any of our product. Now, there has been moves. I think they're going to give us a 12-month extension. But the Chinese have already signalled that they will not be taking any logs from New Zealand, because if you think about their manufacturing sector, the log's got to come from China, from here, it's got to go to China, it's got to be made into a table, and then it's got to go to Europe. The Chinese don't want to be caught with a table that they then can't sell, so they have stopped the import of logs from New Zealand that were going to be destined to Europe. So it's all of that kind of thing. So my job, and amongst all that, is to sit there and be the farmer and explain what we're doing on environment in New Zealand, that actually deforestation isn't an issue, and we can't prove it government to government, but these are what we're doing. In terms of environmental regulation in Europe, they're very, very prescriptive compared to New Zealand, and we have our own set of constraints in this country. We have our own environments, our own soil, our own cities, our own regulations. In agriculture, we do everything is the same in agriculture wherever you go. We all milk a cow, Neil. The milk comes out one way or another, but whichever country you go to, they do it in a different way. And it's the same in agriculture everywhere. You plant a seed, it grows, and you harvest it. The manner in which you do it is different. And the challenge for New Zealand is, because we're so small, it's about getting recognition for the systems that we have, that we would say are adequate and that have been passed by government. It's about getting recognition and equivalence that our regulations will fit in with Europe's. So my job is to be there and amongst that government-to-government discussion to explain what farmers are doing on farm, how we're working with Environment Canterbury, how we're working with the Ashburton District Council to ensure that those things that we consider are normal are also what you consider as normal in Europe. So it's all of those discussions. Look, this job has taken me to India, I've just come back from China, I've been to the United States and Canada, been to Australia, I'm off to Mexico and Peru and Brazil and Colombia before Christmas, and then I'm going back to the United States in April. So look, it takes me all around the world, but it is a real privilege to do it. And to be honest, the conversations I have are just like the ones we're going to have now, because I'm sure you'll have questions for me. So I spoke at the German Select Committee for Agriculture in a room just like this. And I spoke at the European Parliament in Brussels in a room just like this, except 100 times bigger. And what you come to realise, and amongst all that, is that we're all just people trying to do the same thing, and it's where is the common ground in all this. And if agriculture does one thing, it feeds the people, and to me that's always the common ground, is that we're actually trying to do the same things, and how can we work together to achieve the outcome where we're all prosperous. So that's probably, Mr. Chairman, of 15 minutes of what I do.
Pretty close to it, Hamish.
Yeah. Is that all right?
Yep. Well done. Thanks for that oversight of what you do. It's very interesting. very interesting about what's happening in Europe, etc., where you hadn't heard of that yet.
Yes.
That we will learn. But I've got one light on, or a couple of lights on already, so we go to questions. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Thank you, Hamish. It might be a silly question, but
There's no such thing as a silly question.
I know, but start with that way. You never know from Dutch. So why is Econ telling you what you can do in your farm?
So it's all,
What you know?
so why? So
Yeah.
it's all about environmental regulation, and it's all about nutrient management. And so we've got to the point in agriculture and in regulation now where we're really governed by the amount of nutrient that we're supposedly losing from our systems every year. Now, if you plant a wheat crop and you plant a barley crop, they look the same, and they, for all intents and purposes, they are the same, but the models will tell you that they're different. So if you've got a consent to for growing 50 hectares of wheat and 30 hectares of barley, if you then change that to 50 and 50, that like throws your model out. So that's when I say you've got to ask permission. That's what I mean. And so it's dairy and sheep are probably worse than cropping, which is what I do. But essentially that's what it is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Yeah, Hamish. Townie, looking out towards the country, we seem to have a lot of eggs in the dairy basket. And with what you're saying, with how much we rely on export, do you have concerns with that?
No. The world is desperate for protein, and it's desperate for dairy protein. And it's interesting when we think of dairy, we think of milk and we think of cheese and we think of the stuff we see at the supermarket. I mean, you'll have heard of Fonterra. Fonterra lead the game, if not lead the world, in some of their dairy nutrition technology now, and the fact that they can break milk proteins down. And we've all heard of milk powder, and you think of bags of milk powder going off in containers. Well, there's a whole lot more to it than that, and there's specific proteins in pasture-fed milk that you cannot get from other parts of the world where they're fed on corn and soybeans and things. So the world is desperate. It's desperate for Irish dairy, and it's desperate for New Zealand dairy because it's a protein based on pasture.
Right.
So no, I'm not concerned
Okay.
at all.
Another quick one, if I may, please. Sheep, 72 million down to 20. Can you see a comeback there, and especially for the wool industry?
Oh, look, everyone hopes. Why I'm wearing wool. I'm not sure why people aren't wearing wool. I know it's not durable. Our carpet in our house we've got to replace because it's starting to wear out, but it's a totally renewable product. People just don't buy wool, and unfortunately that's just how it is. In terms of the sheep numbers, sheep just aren't profitable. The thing about sheep is that you're always taking them to the sheep yards, or you're taking them away, and you're always doing something in the middle. You're always it's a very, very labour-intensive job for very little return. The Chinese, when they had African swine flu there during the COVID years, basically wiped out about 80% of their pig industry, and 50% of the protein that's consumed in China is from pork. So they lost their pigs. What are we going to replace it with? New Zealand lamb. So the price over the last 4 years has been really high because of that, and they've built their pig numbers up now, so the lamb price has come off. Look, it's always a price point with lamb. I don't know that we'll ever see a thriving sheep industry. Certainly not on high valued land like the Canterbury Plains. We will on hill country because there's nothing else you can do there, and you can do it at a much lower cost. It won't be a thing in Canterbury, I don't think, again.
And
Well-
forestry's displaced a lot of sheep in the North
Yeah.
Island for forestry, which is
Yeah.
perhaps not a good thing. Interesting, this room we're sitting in that carpet there is New Zealand wool.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, afternoon, Hamish. The rates, you know, we get a lot of our income for this place from rates, and we rate the urban people and we rate the rural people. Rural people would say they get rated more than the urban people for their fair share, but that's a matter of perception.
Well, we always do say that.
Exactly, so two farmers agreeing is easy. Around the
But
world,
they say that about us too. So
yeah,
as
around the
long as
world,
yeah.
is it, you know, and like a lot of these other countries, is rates a big issue for farmers, or, you know, how does it work overseas?
Look, I actually don't know. I would only be guessing, Richard, to be honest. So, yeah, I don't know. But I mean, people are always moaning. It's either too wet or it's too dry, and it's always too expensive. So no, I don't know. Yeah.
There might be a challenge when you are overseas.
Yes.
How does their rate? How does people pay for their local government, etc.?
Yeah.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Hamish, you referenced the US market, and I think the first slide said that about 10% went to North America, which I assume is the US.
Yep.
And the last slide said it was 12%. So in between, I think it's gone up to about 21 or something like that. So it's obviously a hard market to crack anyway. So even though Mr. Trump is threatening all sorts of stuff, why can't we grow the market to the US when we're so dependent on, say, the Chinese market, when the US market, we're more aligned to them than we are to China, but they won't.
Well, that's a great question. So we have an FTA with China, which means we've basically got tariff-free export to China. Interestingly, we're the only Five Eyes partner with America that doesn't have an FTA. So we have to pay tariffs into the United States on all sorts of things. There's 10% tariff on top of that will be a real challenge. You're 100% right that the US market is a growth market, and it's now our second most valuable market after China, and it's a market that's growing. And one of you asked me about the dairy before. Oh, yeah, sorry. So the Americans are really looking at our dairy industry now in terms of being able to provide the ingredients required, and they're ready to drink sports drinks things and into their ingredients market. They're looking at our beef industry. Well, they're looking at our beef. They want their grass-fed beef because it's low in fat compared to others. So they use our New Zealand beef to blend with their own to lower the fat content. We're very strong in wine into the US. So what we have got a huge market there at the moment. We've got so much potential. So what I didn't talk about in this presentation is non-tariff barriers. And by non-tariff barriers, what I'm talking about is governments or importers will put legalised roadblocks in place to slow down imports and to add cost in a way to legally protect their own industries. So things like packaging, about labelling, about inspections at the wharf. And so a lot of what our government do on our behalf is to try and work through those non-tariff barriers to get all the packaging right, to get all the labelling correct, and all those things. So in answer to your question, the US market is one that we're working really, really hard to crack. And it's interesting that the Americans have been down here about 3 or 4 times lately, which says to me that they're pretty interested as well.
I've got time for 3 more questions. Councillor Love.
Just looking at the environmental and the green influence on rules and regulations, and it seems to be on that journey of killing the food production worldwide. Is there anybody kind of there looking at this thinking, are we going too far with rules and regulations and we've got to stop this?
Yeah, there's lots of people talking about that. In fact, I got invited to Paris later this month to talk about just that, but I can't go, which my wife's pretty upset about. But anyway, we can't go. And it's about how do you make sensible environmental regulation that allows for the sustainable production of food. Because in Germany now the regulations are that way that pork production is almost finished. We've seen what's happened in the Netherlands with what they've done to their dairy industry, and even their construction industry. You're not allowed to dig a hole now and build a building or do anything in case you leach some nitrogen. So, I mean, it's madness. So we will get to the point one day was where does our food actually come from? I read a really interesting stat. We're going down a rabbit hole in it now, sorry. But I read a really interesting stat now that in the United States, 1,500 acres is what you require to be a standalone or self-supporting farm unit. If you're less than that, you need to go and get a job off the farm to support what you're doing. Now that's not right. Part of that is the fact that we all want cheap food, and so a peaceful population is a full population. So governments around the world subsidise farmers to produce food to keep the price of the food down in the supermarket. So farmers are dealing with low income and then a top up from the government that they see fit as to what you should get. So it's a really dynamic area, and governments are talking about it everywhere, but no one's got an answer.
Thanks. Are we allowed to have a copy of your stats and things?
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
Thank you.
Councillor Cameron?
At the risk of repeating Lynette's question, because the government, New Zealand government, whoever that may be at any one time, wants to see the GDP increase.
Yes.
And we want more growth and we want more resources in our country to spend on more programs. So we've seen your figures that dairy is responsible for a significant amount of revenue to the government and to New Zealand. If the dairy and the environmental constraints on the dairy herd growth is affecting the export, have you seen anything else picking up to take the slack, or where are we going to end up? Like, if we've got nothing else, as you alluded to, well,
And do you mean in agriculture?
Oh no, I mean in general. What's going to take the gap if we're not allowed to increase the dairy herd, and we need to increase the GDP in order to improve our well-being in New Zealand? Where is the slack coming from in your travels and what you've viewed?
Well, I don't know that I've got an answer. But in terms of you go to many other countries, you go to the United States where they have these massive populations, and so their service economies are huge. And the manufacturing sectors are huge. We haven't got a manufacturing sector. We had one. We haven't got one anymore. So my answer is that because of our geographical constraint, the only thing we've really got, we have got some, we've got minerals and natural resources and things, and we're waiting for a rainy day, and maybe it's raining now, maybe we need to be into them, but we actually haven't got much else because of we're so geographically constrained.
That's right, and you can't really export your services.
No, I mean you can export brain power. I mean, and we can all work from home and do things here. But how big is that market? We've got to produce something to sell, and I don't know what that
and
thing
I
is.
feel we're a bit lost at the moment with regards to what we're going to do about that. How we're going to address that?
Yeah. I mean, there is a crisis coming, and we probably won't feel it in Mid-Canterbury because we've got such a diverse agricultural economy. But if you go to South Otago or most of the North Island, sheep farming has got to the point now where it's uneconomic. The only option for those families, if they want to leave the industry, because a bank won't give you money unless you've got a fair percentage to go with it. Bank won't give you the money that to be able to afford the farm to the value that those people think it's worth. So the only option for that family to get off doing what they're doing is to go to trees, and we don't want that either.
No.
Yeah. So it's a real thing. Yeah.
We had peak cow about 3-4 years ago, and I think we're losing. The herd is diminishing by
Yes.
100,000 cows per year at the moment. So something that's very valuable overseas, we're actually producing less of.
Yeah. But the value of that is actually going up, isn't it? Yeah.
Because of the supply and
Yeah,
demand.
Yeah,
Councillor Millen, then one more for
Yeah,
Councillor May.
thanks. Hi, Hamish. That was really interesting. I was just wondering, a couple of questions. Is it a fixed term position? Is it, so just a couple of,
So I've got, I'm a contractor to Ministry of Foreign Affairs and MPI, and essentially they'll get sick of me or I'll get sick of them. I mean, I'm happy as a sandboy at the moment.
so it's not a
And
2-year position?
It's no.
right? No.
To be honest, I'm 18 months into this role. I'm really only just getting organised and sorted out what I'm actually doing. So I would think I'm hoping there's another 2 years in it, so I can actually start to add some value and make some difference.
And you host people here as well? Is
All
that
the time. So
all the
I've got some Americans coming to see me on Friday. Whenever there's a agricultural delegation from overseas come to do with the government, I'm generally involved in that. I had the Director General of European Agriculture out on farm in the North Island, just me and him and a few bodyguards a while ago. And I've had a congressman from the United States come and visit. He came to our farm. He met with Winston Peters, with Judith Collins, and then he came and met with me. So that was it was quite an honour, really. And then when I was up in Washington DC, we met with him. So that was quite good.
And how do people, I mean, I know you post things on social media, what you're up to, but do you have a website or or something?
No.
How do you report back?
So that is a good question. So it's actually not one of my requirements to report back, but I know as a farmer and as a member of the Ashburton district, we need to know what our markets are saying. So I mean, because I'm employed by the government, my role is to report to them. But I take it upon myself to, if anyone rings me up from the media, I will talk to them. I actively talk with Farmers Weekly and Rural News. I post on LinkedIn, I post on Facebook, I've done podcasts, whatever. And it's all very much conversations like what we're having now. What are our markets wanting, and what are they thinking about, which we haven't actually touched about here. But yeah, it's all that, yeah.
Last question, Councillor Mickle.
Thank you. Thank you, Hamish, and very pleased you were selected to captain our team for the industry. Yeah, and you talked very well. I did a trip to America in 2014, did 32 states,
Wow.
talked to hundreds of people. Only 3 people that I talked to, that I asked if they knew where New Zealand was, knew of some degree.
Yeah.
Some people thought it was in Florida somewhere. Yeah, so the general public over there don't know who we are, which was a shock to me at the time, because we do a very good job of blowing ourselves, making ourselves very well known in New Zealand itself, but it seems overseas we're unheard of.
Yeah.
Obviously you're rubbing shoulders with the right people and to get a niche amount of people and getting the answers you need there, but do they really, does the public over there really know where that protein's coming from? Is it needed? It can be dropped at any stage. They've done a very good job bringing you on board to try and sell our products, etc., and where we're from. But my question is, the politicians that you're going over there with, we always see them on TV heading over, they're here, there and everywhere. Are they actually doing a good job, or are they just going for a holiday?
That's a good question. So to clarify, I don't travel with the minister,
Yep.
or the actual MPs as such. I travel with the MPI and Foreign Affairs, their market access people. Look, in the main, I would say that the politicians involved in agriculture are doing a great job, because they're out there and they're doing it. I mean, Chatham House rules. Winston Peters is held in the.
No, we're live streamed here. We're live streamed over, so it's not. It's not Chatham House.
But we're held in the highest. We're held in the highest regard everywhere. From what I said right at the start, that the people and the product that we produce is of very high quality. But the people that we're working with do a job in the background that, I mean, I had no idea until I started working with MPI and MFAT about the job that they do on market access. And it's unbelievable the amount of work that goes on, and what I was talking about before in those non-tariff barriers, for example. But they do work hard, and they absolutely have got our best interests at heart, yes. Yeah, most definitely. It's interesting though, what you've touched on there is a really interesting point, and it's a point about who is our customer. And so we always think about the fact that the supermarket shopper is our customer. And I don't know whether you've heard about Fonterra lately wanting to divest some of its consumer brands, so the cheese and things, and focus more on ingredients. And that's really the point of that is that actually there's a massive consumer in the baking and the restaurant and the hospitality sector outside of the supermarket that's willing to pay a lot more for product than what the supermarket shopper is. So when we talk about what's the value and who's our customer and things, well, actually the people that are making drinks in America don't need to know that the sun shines in New Zealand and the sky's blue and that the grass is green. All they care about is that the grass-fed milk is of premium quality. You go to China, on the other hand, the Chinese are all on their phones, looking at New Zealand, looking at our place. They all know that the sky's blue and the grass is green, and they're very, very interactive with what's going on in terms of where their food is coming from. So, in answer to your question, it depends on which country we're talking about and which market it is. So it's a complicated answer.
The other, if I can ask one more
Really
question.
quickly.
Are we watching what they're doing over there? Like, if the dairy industry in America decides it feeds its own country basically with its product, if it ramps up and they have excess product that goes out onto the world market, where only 3% of that, it doesn't take much to blow us out of the water. Do we have people here watching what's happening in those countries?
Yeah, and look, the United States are exporting. Most countries are exporting. It's just about New Zealand finding its niche in amongst all that. And the challenge in all that is trying to be consistent with supply. So we've got good markets. We have to try and keep them because someone's always knocking at the door wanting to get into them. So, yeah.
Thanks, Hamish.
Great. Thanks, Hamish. Thanks for a great presentation. It was really informative and letting us know what you do. I like the analogy that you're the captain of the team, which is great.
Well, that's certainly how I feel.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's great that you enjoy the job too, because
Yeah.
it makes it a hell of a lot better when you really love the job you're doing. So, and I'll just think of the words you said, that we're all people just trying to do the same things around the world, which is right. So, good analogy there. So, thank you very much for coming in. We will get you back at some stage in the future to give us an update on how it's going.
Yeah.
And thanks very much.
No, my pleasure. I always enjoy coming, so thank you very much.
Thank you. So next item on the agenda, councillors, is item number 7 on page 10, the road maintenance contract extension. And welcome Neil and Mark to the table. Anything further you'd like to add, Neil or Mark, to your report?
No, nothing to add.
Nothing to add, great. Questions, councillors, before we go to decision making? Councillor Cameron.
I have a few questions, and I alluded to one earlier. But first of all, on page 11.4, requested extending the contract period. Who requested? Did we request, or did HEB go straight to NZTA, or did they come to council to request extending the contract period?
And that's council getting permission from NZTA to get the extension
Okay.
under our procurement procedures, yeah.
So a request to extend the council contract period to 7 years was made to NZTA, so we made that request.
Yeah, because the maximum is 5 years currently, but you can get exemption to have
Sure.
extensions to that.
And when I look at the ratings evaluation, you've got unsatisfactory, acceptable, very good. which is pretty basic even for some of our ratings, like bad, okay, very good. So it doesn't seem very nuanced to me, but I'm guessing it has improved, so that's good, although we did have a wee bit of a dip somewhere. When you go down to the score, contract year 3, you can see the score dips down to, for example, drainage is 2.51. What is the minimum requirement that you require to be worthy enough of renewing the contract?
There's no set amount. It's given indication on where areas can be improved on and how it's tracking through the period of that contract. For example, in our previous contract, there was no KPIs measurement. This information wasn't available for that. It's how the staff work together. So there's no score. So if you get a 2, that, oh, we've got a problem. But if there's something that's not scoring very well, then it's something that the contract and council staff work on to actually try and improve. So that's the idea of it, to keep a trend and keep a monitor of different parts of the contract and the contract overall.
Okay, may I ask one more question, please, Mr. Mayor? Just a quick one. I understand that this contract was let in conjunction with the South Canterbury contract. Is that correct?
No, that was the previous one.
Oh, not this recent one. I thought it was this recent one.
No, it was the previous one.
Okay, so we've got nothing to so my question relates to how do we compare this contract? Like, is this good? Because we've got the previous one was Fulton Hogan. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got nothing to compare this very good, acceptable, unsatisfactory to. Like, how do we know that this is good?
Just if I can help with the answer, the very good, acceptable and unsatisfactory is a summary on a monthly basis of all the other matters that are measured. So the way in which we are trying to think about this contract is more around trends than absolute numbers on particular aspects. And you can see that over the life of this contract, we believe their performance has been improving and continues to improve. And that's about all you really need to take from it. It's not like a pass mark. I heard Mark say that we didn't previously have these things in the contract with Fulton Hogan, so we can't compare it to a previous contract with a different contractor. All we're trying to give you an impression of is that this contract is now 5 years in. We believe that their performance is continuing to improve, and largely on that basis, we think we should continue to get the benefit of that improvement for the extension that is available under the contract, and Waka Kotahi have approved it, which they must do. So it's almost as broad brush as that, as opposed to a specific exam that X is a pass and Y isn't. It's an impression that this measurement system is leaving us that brings us to this point.
Councillor Wilson?
The cost increases over the last 3 years, what have they been? As percentage-wise, because obviously the contract must have had some cost escalation within it. What has it been over the last 3 years?
The value of the cost escalations for the contract to date is about 11% increase.
So how much?
About 11%. So the first 7 months of the contract, there was no cost fluctuations. Then it's been applied to the next year, the next year, and the next year after that. So the total of that is about 11% on the value. Yeah.
In total?
Yeah.
Who sets those increases?
The indices are set from NZTA, so it's taken from maintenance contracts and it's taken from information across the country on fuel, labour and materials, all that sort of thing to do with maintenance. Yeah.
So every roading contractor who has a contract with a council gets those increments each year?
If their contract applies cost fluctuations based on those indices, because you can write it a different way if you want, you can use different numbers, but using NZTA ones seems to make sense for a maintenance contract. So the cost fluctuation today, so the current indices are applied to whatever the work is done today. So it's different to what it was last year and the year before and the year before. So it accumulates over time. So it's the highest it is now. It's at 26% or something like that, I think. But that's only applying to today's rate. So if they go down a bit, then it'll be different. But generally, they keep increasing. But in terms of the total value, it's 11% of what we've done to date.
Okay, so I'll take that. So the inflation the CPI for September was released at 0.6%, 2.2% per year. So we're very, very low inflation. We could even be in deflation. We don't know yet. With the new 3-year funding from NZTA being finalised, that's our funding, our 50% share. Our contract, that will change our contracting requirements behind it, because the government's changed the focus from rural and biking and all that sort of stuff to more fix the roads and make the roads good. Wouldn't it be a good time to re-tender this contract? And I think you've made the comment down there that the risk is that council may miss the opportunity to get a benefit from a competitive market. So obviously it's a good time to go out. It may be seen as limiting the ability of other contractors to tender for the term maintenance contract. So maybe some of the other ones have got a lot better. So I'm anxious to hear comments on that.
Yes, it could be a good time. You don't know though. It depends what happens out there. One thing, going out for construction contracts, for one-off ones, short-term ones that last for like our rehabs, I think it's a good time for that because there's competition. Like we've had 5 contractors tender for that. For a maintenance contract though, it's for 5 years, and there is a risk if you go out now when there's a bit of competition. Contractors need the work. You don't want someone putting in a price to win the contract and then struggle for 5 years, and that's the most difficult part of running a maintenance contract. If there's some parts of that work that say, right, I think we want to win this, so we'll get in now. I'd be surprised if we went to the market now that the costs would be much different to what we're paying with the current contract rates, with the fluctuations on top, because that's the cost to contractors in the market. So yes, it could be a good time. It may not be. You don't know. For staff, we haven't necessarily got a problem either way. Most maintenance contracts are about the relationship with the contractor and working data with the people rather than what the unit rates are and things like that. And the relationship is actually working quite well. They know that the contractor and they know we're the client. So building on that, if normally maintenance contracts have a problem when that relationship isn't going very well and you're arguing about things, when at the moment it's actually quite collaborative and working together and making agreed decisions for the benefit of both parties. So, I know that answers your question, but you wouldn't know. We could go to the market and we'll find out and that'll be the answer, but I don't know what the result of that's going to be.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you. Through the chair, just on page 13, you've got the performance rating in probably a similar vein to Councillor Cameron, but would you expect year one to sort of start off as fair and to slowly increase, or did the weather events at the time affect those ratings? And I know Selwyn District Council, they also use HEB, I think, is that correct? So have you talked to them, are they sort of finding that the performance is kind of on par with us?
Yes, it's similar. The history at Selwyn is a lot longer, so that's been, they're in the 3rd term of the contract, so it's been over 10 years. It's about 12 or 13 years now that they've been there. So this is the 1st term, and when I first arrived here, so I'm coming up 3 years at Ashburton, there were a few issues with the contract at that time in terms of particularly sealed pavement maintenance and repairs and how well they were done. And you can look at the first column on performance evaluation, the graph. That is where one of the biggest improvements has been, and that's between the council staff and the contractor working together. So the start of a maintenance contract, coming in fresh, getting the resources and the people together for it, I think that's been a challenge for HEB in this one. And it took a couple of years probably to get to, and getting to a point now where they've got the resources and the people in place to do what they need to do, and got the relationship with council staff and understanding what's needed for the network. So it's pretty normal for it to start off a bit lower and improve. If it wasn't improving, then we probably wouldn't be recommending a 2-year extension. Yeah.
Just on that same vein, year one, they had 58% score, year two, 61%, and year three, up to 74%. Nowhere near 100%. We paid 100%, I presume.
That's right.
So haven't been getting value for money, if I can look at it that way. And we're still perhaps not, because we're only at 75%, me reading a graph. Have you a different take on that?
I'm not sure. It's a bit like evaluating staff each year and things like that. No one gets a 5 out of 5, even though they're performing and doing their job. And I haven't been in any maintenance contract where the contractors have been performing at 100%. It's a satisfaction level and doing it. If we wanted to have the best network out there and really maintain it at high quality, we'd have to pay for that. but this is measuring how the contractor is dealing with each of those different parts of it. So I don't see it literally as, they're operating at, we're only getting 75% value. They're performing really well and doing what they're doing, and we're okay with the 2-year extension. But 100% giving a rating for someone to doing their job, it's, in my view, not realistic.
Have we applied penalties to them at any stage?
Not penalties, no. There's been a lot of work that hasn't been paid when it's been claimed for because it hasn't been done to our satisfaction, so they've had to go back and redo it.
Councillor Cameron.
Just a quick question. When we had the survey of the community, the feedback was that people were disappointed in the quality of our roads, and we got a lot of feedback on the quality of our repairs, specifically potholes weren't done to an adequate level, and sometimes sealed roads weren't up to the standard. Was the community in the reviewing of this work, were the community, did they have an opportunity to have an input into this, or did you look at the survey and put that feedback into this measurement, or is this staff measurement on the quality?
This is staff measurement of the contractor's performance in relation to the contract. Yeah, because I don't think the community's view of the state of the network is necessarily just the contractor or just council. It's a view of the network and the age of it and how much work we can actually do on it with the funding we have.
Indeed, and that's how we help direct our funding, is the feedback from the community. So, yeah.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. I think for a maintenance program that we're doing here, all I look for is consistency. And we had the HEB manager here 6 months ago, and I think we were saying that they were doing quite a good job. So that's what I go by, is if we're happy with the job they've been doing, then for a maintenance program we should continue with our present supplier.
Councillor Wilson.
I just note another thing, that the biggest contributor to higher inflation has been higher rates in the latest quarter. So it's our job is to get the rates, no increases down. So will this help to stop our rate increases that we've in our long-term plan? We would have put some numbers in there for increase in inflation over the next 3 years. We want to be, because we've got a good opportunity from inflation dropping, to try and squeeze things down a bit tighter for the same, because that's what inflation is. You get the same outcome for the same cost, not an increase in cost because you can charge it or it's just expected. So, is our contract just going to be, well, we got 7% last year, we get another 7% next year, or is it going to be 0% for the same job but at 100% performance?
The contractor doesn't decide the percentage. It's simply based on indices from NZTA. So that's what we applied, and I think there's been discussion in the past that you put it at tender rates and that's it, and for the 5 years you keep them the same, when you could need to take into account inflation. One of the unfortunate things is the funding that we have from NZTA doesn't. It's fixed for 3 years, so unless council want to put more up in that time, I can't really answer the question, I don't think.
Through the chair, the indices do sometimes have a negative. So if the cost of fuel drops, it does reflect in the indices, and you can actually get a negative. So you can get it, instead of getting a positive, it'll be a negative, and that would pass through on this contract adjustment.
Just to help the councillor's question, my understanding is that the indices are narrowly focused on the price of network maintenance work, so they're not related to an overall inflation number per se. So that where inflation is at in total is not something that has a direct effect on the price of a particular piece of the work, because the indices are more narrowly focused on that. Is that correct?
There's normally two components. There's the labour component and then the plant, which is largely fuel driven. So it's those two indices that they focus on for these.
There is a separate indice for sealing and specifically, and for bridges specifically. The one for maintenance and construction includes some of the sealing costs because it's affected by oil price and cost of bitumen and things like that, but it deals with other things as well, like supply materials and labour costs and that, to do with maintenance and construction industry.
Yes, the proportion of how that's spread, like for bitumen and roading, it'll be more, that index will know it'll be materials, the proportions within each material for each area, it does vary, but it's really is labour and plant costs. Yep.
Councillor Lovett?
If we didn't accept this contract, extend it out for 2 years and had to go back out to tender, what cost are we looking at?
Yeah, haven't really got a number, but it's staff time of preparing the documents together and then engaging who we need to help with. It's just evaluating the tenders like a probity audit and things like that. But we're not talking about a huge cost. If it was 25,000, that'd probably be the top range of it, just from my quick estimate. And that's not an extra cost to what we're doing. That's part of our network and asset management. It's a cost that's already there for managing the contract, and then when you actually go to tender, it's not additional to that, so it'll be done as part of the staff time will be devoted on that. So it's not a big consideration, it's just whether we actually go for that or not. So I'm already starting working on updating the current documents, getting ready for when we do have to go to the market, making notes as through the contract on what things need to be adjusted a wee bit. So we're preparing for that already.
It just worries me, like if we go back out to recontract this, we could end up back where we started 2 years ago, and we're just coming up out of, we're getting some good repairs, and yeah.
Councillor Meikle?
Thank you. I seen a caption the other day that said the potholes were so bad in a town that they can change your radio station and unlock your doors. I don't know if we're quite at that stage yet, but yeah. If we went out to re-tender, there is a fair hunger for work amongst contractors at the moment. Would we be in a far better position to capitalise on that at the moment?
Hamish?
I think the simple truth is we don't know. We understand that market environment. We also understand the progress we're making with our current contractor who knows our network and knows our people.
I know that, Hamish, but it comes down to dollars and cents.
No, of course it does. But we can't answer how the market is going to respond to our tender as definitively as your question suggests.
It's common knowledge. There's no work out there. So if it went out to tender, we'd have a fair interest, would we not?
Yep, agreed. For a maintenance contract of this size, there's not that many contractors can actually do it, and we'll know the main ones, and they're also ones that will be looking at for the state highway maintenance contracts at the moment, which are going to be going out to the market soon as well. And they're big contracts, and so there'll be a real focus on that. And I think across the country they're actually going out all at once as well. So there's a lot of work that's contractors are going to be working on and be focused on over the next few months, so, whether it's ours or other ones as well.
So you suggested 25,000 to go out and re-tender, was that correct?
That's sort of the cost of staff cost and things like that to do it.
So for that cost, we went out and re-tender, and there was a lot of hats thrown in the ring as such. HEB can re-tender?
Well, no doubt, yeah.
I think it's worth the risk.
You'll know in a few minutes. Councillor Wilson.
Yep, it was just a point of clarification that the norm is 5-year contract, not 7. So us going out for 2 is not the norm. The normal is a 5-year contract, and then you can extend, but you've got to ask to extend. So it's not we're not cutting ourselves short of doing anything out of the norm. We're actually doing something completely out of the norm.
Well, no, I think the contract is the contract, and it contemplates a 2-year extension. So that is normal. And I think I heard our roading manager say that Selwyn, our nearest neighbour, is now entering year 12 or 13 with the same contractor. So they presumably have extended and rolled contracts in whatever fashion they do it.
No, they re-tendered it, and the contractor has won it for the 3rd time. So, yeah, all been awarded.
After only 5-year terms?
Yep.
Okay.
But it's a choice you can have in procurement. So 5 years seemed to be the maximum. You can always get approved. You could just have a 7-year term if NZTA approved it, or you could have a 5+2. Or previously we used to have 3+1+1, depending on performance after 3 years. But had 2 rounds of contracts where the 1+1+1 happened sort of automatically. So we said, have a 5-year term. It seems to make a bit more sense, because any contract you can deal with performance along the way and agree to terminate it or whatever if things aren't going that well. But 5 years seems about right. But if things are going well, an extension on that seems to make sense as well, depending on what's going on around the place. So.
just my last point question. When you redo a contract, you then are in 100% agreement when you sign that contract. At the moment, that the two parties could have just moved apart a bit, and one feels aggrieved and the other feels aggrieved, but the contract's the contract. Once you sign it, you are aligned. Otherwise, you wouldn't sign the contract. And that's the benefit of it. If we're unhappy with someone, they're unhappy, they bring it to the table and we agree that we have to agree what the point is. So that's where, once you've redone it, you've reset the wheels, and there should be 100%. They should come out 100% because there's no excuse to be 75. Otherwise, someone's breaching their part of the contract. Is that fair comment?
The 100% is a myth. I don't know too many people who got school C with every subject passing at 100%. Like there is an acceptable level of performance, and we're trying to measure that and put some sort of science around it rather than just guessing and getting on with people. But 100% is never going to be attainable. We might say we don't want any potholes, and there's one. Okay, so they've failed.
Yeah, but they would not sign a contract. If they signed a contract saying they would do all the potholes, why didn't they do them? They signed it. We paid them the money to do that contract. So that's what I'm saying. So it's you can't.
With the greatest of respect, I don't think that perfect world exists, and I don't think there will be a single contract we could ever sign with anyone, no matter how often we tender it, that will deliver 100%. That world doesn't actually exist. We're all doing our best to improve it. We want it to be as good as we can. We want it to be as close to perfect as we can get it. But saying someone has failed because it's not 100%, I think is unrealistic.
Taking 4 years, we're 4 years of the contract now, started year 4, to get to this level is taking too long, I believe. Sure, when you start, you need to know the system, you need to get going. We're in year 4 and they're still not achieving, or just achieving at 75%, been down at 50, 52 was it? I remember when they first got the contract, not this room, but a chamber of ours, and said, well, you will notice improvements immediately with us getting this contract. They haven't delivered on that, is my view, over the time. They have got better, I will acknowledge that, but they do need to lift. If we extend for 2 years, there's some things they need to work on. Traffic management is one. We've mentioned it before. We talked to them about it. It doesn't change. They still have those 30 Ks up in the 100K zones when there's no one working on them in the weekends, night time. Could go back to 50. They just don't do it. Efficiency. I think they need, all contractors, this one, need to work on efficiency. We all drive through them. You see one person on a shovel and 4 people watching. You can't do that today. That's their efficiency. They need more money. That's for them to make, get efficiencies and make more, any contractor. So, yeah, I think if we extend, they'll be on notice to perform, because in 2 years' time we'll be up. Councillor Cameron, there was no question there, sorry.
Yeah, I've got 2 more questions, really quick ones. The price, if we extend the contract, is the price the same with the exception of inflationary fuel pressure, is that right?
Yeah, the contract price when it was tendered is the base, and then it's got the fluctuation added on.
We have heard repeatedly from various around the table, of course, but also externally, that things are a bit tougher now in the contracting world and the prices can be a little bit sharper. Have you gone back to them, and they don't obviously have any setup costs anymore because they have their tractors and their graders and their staff. Have you gone back to them and said we'd like a 5% decrease to renew the contract for 2 years?
No, we haven't.
Well, why not?
But because the renewal of the contract is just that, it's renewing the contract. Yeah. It's not renegotiating it.
So that would be considered renegotiating.
100%.
Yeah. Because that would seem a reasonable suggestion for me, because their setup costs obviously significantly reduced in there. Yeah. Yep. And my other question, my last question, Neil, please, is that Waka Kotahi have approved it. Do they do independent measurements of the contract, or are they relying on your measurements as to the achievement or otherwise of the contract?
In terms of the contract extension, it's NZTA give the permission for us to have an extra 2 years over 5. So it's not to do with performance, that's for us to do. It's just the ability to actually do that. We could still choose, say, no, we don't want to do an extension, but it's given us the ability to do it.
Yeah, I understand that. But I just wonder what they're approving then. They're just approving you can go ahead and do it. They're not looking at it or reviewing it or making an assessment as to how good it was.
Not for that decision, but NZTA do, on about, 3 or 4 year cycle, do technical audits of the network on how we're doing things and the procedural audit and how we're managing it and things like that. So they do those separate checks outside of the decision for the extension. Of how we're managing the network. So
Of the contract.
and it's a reflection of how the contract is doing it and how council is managing it and how we're funding what we're doing.
So they've come back and said, you're doing okay.
That's the previous auditors have said we're doing okay. Yeah,
When did we get
we're not
the
doing
last audit,
100%, but
please?
we're doing okay.
When did we get the last audit?
We had that
2 years
before-
ago.
yeah, it was a couple of years ago, and in fact, it was better than okay. And I remember the comment around this council table was that they were somewhat surprised because the resident survey carried more weight for councillors than the technical
Well,
review.
of course it does. But that was when they were driving around, wasn't it? That was the one where they drove over all the roads and said, yeah, I remember that.
It's
Was
the
that-
technical audit. There's also
Yeah.
a procedural audit that was done January this year. So,
I don't know what that means. Yep. Okay.
just making sure we're doing the claims, we're keeping a good track of where we're spending the money and claiming correctly and, accountancy stuff. Yeah.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you. Mark, so basically over the last 3 years, they came up 16%. Is that correct? Have a look at it. Yeah. On page 13, is that correct? Yeah. So they're going quite well. And so they will go up over the next 2 years. That's what you expect.
I would hope so. The continuous improvement during the contract is what we're after, and it's what they're after as well. But they're a contractor out to make a profit on the work they do, like any contractor. But from our point of view, they've taken ownership and they care about the network and they want to maintain the network and do a good job. Not doing a 100% job, but they're doing the job and it is improving. And in my time here, I've certainly seen that improvement in terms of the people they've got and how they're going about doing the work.
And I understand they won the contract because the one we had, we didn't like. So those guys coming in cold and going up. So why are we going to throw it out?
Yeah, it wasn't because I wasn't here when the previous contract, when the contract was let, but it wasn't because it didn't like the contract. During the tender evaluation process, evaluating the attributes separate from the price, it was HIP got a higher score than the previous contractor, and then the prices were open, and that was a result of it. So it wasn't because the current contract wasn't liked. It was just a result of the tender process and the evaluation of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. Just very quickly through the chair, I'm looking on page 13, the performance evaluation again. So I maybe because I can't remember, but do we normally as councillors get this performance table every year, or is this the first time we've seen it in the first 3 years? I'm just thinking of the Mayor's comment where he said if we extend for a further 2 years, so we've got up to 2025, so next year, and then we extend it for another 2 years. If we see this table in year 4 and year 5 and the performance has not increased, can we then reevaluate?
It's only a 2-year extension.
But we're only on, it was initially a 5-year contract, wasn't it? So we're only in year,
We're heading
we're
into
in year 4.
2020, didn't we take this over?
We're in December, 1st of December 2020, so we're in year 4, so year 5
Well,
will
now,
start
so
in
we're
1st of
nearly
December.
heading into year 5.
So we have got 2 more years of
top
this
of that,
evaluation for us to see, is it?
No,
No?
no. On the 1st of December, 4 years will be clicked past.
Okay.
So there will be into the 5th year. If we're re-tendering, we'll be doing that during the HIB's 5th year. If we're rolling it over, there'll be 2 more.
Okay, so my question is, at the end of the year 4 contract, so 1st of December this year, will we then be presented this table of year 4 of how we're performing?
We can present it's something that can be included in the activity briefings. You can see every
that's
6
what
or
I
8
mean,
weeks
yeah.
when we have them, if you like.
Yeah. So I just think we need to be seeing these numbers.
It's a continuous
Going forward.
evaluation that it
Yeah.
happens. So every month they do the evaluation on what the work's been done. So.
Councillor Cameron?
This is a $22 million extension, is that right? $11 million per year under financial implications.
Yeah, that's about the cost, yeah, and based on the budgets we have, yeah.
So that's a lot of money by anybody's stretch.
Yeah, it's generally the biggest contract, one of the biggest contracts we ever let, so, yeah.
I note that the extension was applied for in July, and this is the first time it's come to the council table to consider.
Yeah, that's from the request of the
Yeah.
NDTA, because the
But
contract
that
didn't specifically allow for the 2
raising
years.
was a question, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder about that. Can we, and you've asked for a 2-year extension, can we renew it annually, like 1 year, renew, another year?
No,
renew?
no, the contract has a 2-year extension provision. So we say yes or no to that.
Okay, thank you.
So just to be clear on that, we either extend for 2 years or we go to tender. There's only two options here. Yeah, there's no
That's the option
in-between
for it,
option.
yes.
There's no option to do 1 year or 3 years. It's 2 years or no years, go to tender. Right.
Haven't put forward that option, no, so, yeah.
But is it an option?
There's no reason why it couldn't be, from my understanding, because if a 2-year extension is approved, then NZTA wouldn't have a problem with the 1-year extension. It's just whether that is enough of, I'd say, not security or confidence to do that. I mean, are we going to do extra measures to see what the differences are in the extra year? But you can say the same argument for an extra 2 years, so, yeah.
Yeah, but it could be an option. Is it?
I think you could do the 1 year by agreement, with obviously with HEB. I don't think you could do 3. That feels like a brand new contract to me. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to move, so if...
No, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Councillor Michael?
Thank you. Just to follow on with what Councillor Cameron was saying about, was it 22 million, Carolyn? 25,000 to reset and go out to tender for what the cost may be could definitely be in our benefit. And also you were saying about the work has not been up to standard in a number of areas with HEB at the moment. We could also reset our expectations of those conditions as well at the same time, could we not?
Yes, we could. Not being up to standard, so we're not dissatisfied with the work that HEB are doing at the moment. There's always some things in the maintenance contract that aren't done quite as well as you want to do, and there's rework needed. So,
Yeah, but on that, Mark, we've already been to them and asking, pretty please, can you do this? And it hasn't been adjusted because they just haven't adjusted it because they feel they don't have to. So now it's time to pay the piper.
I think we've finished question time. Councillor Wilson?
Oh, finished question time, sorry.
No, Councillor Love, do you have a
sorry.
question? Councillor, yeah, Councillor.
I did a question, but if you go.
Oh, no, if you got, I'm on questions still, to the questions. Right, I'm asking for questions. Has anyone got questions? Then I'll call for a move and a second now. This question time is over. I'll call for a move and a second to the recommendation we have here, or alternative recommendation, if you wish. Thank you, gentlemen. Councillor Wilson.
I'd like to put a motion that we look to re-tender our 5-year contract at the end of this current 5-year period. And the reason I put the motion forward is I think it'd be good to test the room rather than just fall into that. Then we can have to make a proper decision, not just it's harder to make a decision than it is to just roll along.
So your motion is?
That we re-tender the road and network maintenance and operations contract would begin in 2026 till 2030.
Right, so the recommendation is different than what's written on your paper. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Lovett. Councillor Mackle?
Yes, I'll
You second it. Councillor Wilson, you speak to your motion?
I believe it's a good time to have a go at looking at the new contract. We understand our roading network well. We've just been given the money from the government for another 3 years, which doesn't start for a while. Therefore, we've reset our expectations of our roading network because we've upped our investment in it. Therefore, we should be looking to convey that through our contract to our roading maintenance crew. And if they're as good as we think they are, they'll get the job. So we're not sacking them. We're just renegotiating what our expectations are. So they're still in the box seat to get the job. It's not as though we're saying goodbye. the relationship hasn't broken down, so it's a positive, not a negative.
Okay, Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Yeah, I speak in favour of the motion. I think the timing's right to test the market, and I think HEB have been on the improve, and maybe they can come back to us and improve their price. So I speak in favour.
Councillor Lovett, speakers for or against? Councillor Lovett.
I'm speaking against it because I think, you know, the HEB have invested into the district, and we're just seeing a vast improvement with their potholes around the districts and their roading. I have driven around this county and had a good look, and they are trying different methods to fix these potholes, and they're not the same ones breaking open. Our roads have got no base in them, and with all the heavy vehicles, they just keep breaking, and it's not their fault. So I'm not supporting, and our public told us last round they didn't like the contractor we had because they weren't doing a good job, so we went to HEB, and we are making improvements, and I think we've got to give them I'd like to see a 2-year extension.
Councillor Cameron.
I speak in favour of the motion. I cannot see any disadvantage to the motion, as Richard said, if they're not, you know, it's a vote of confidence really to say that the roads are improving, we want it to continue to improve, and that they stand probably in a very advantageous position because they understand what's involved in maintaining the continuous improvement that we currently have. I think also it's an acknowledgement of the resident survey, and it's also an acknowledgement of the investment in our roads, which is $22 million for 2 years, that we respect that money and we value the contribution from the ratepayer, and we want to make sure that it's maximised. So I think we should be re-tendering and ascertaining what we can get, you know, in terms of feedback for that money, you know, as an investment. So I speak in favour of the motion.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I speak against the motion. Couple of reasons for that. One is we know how much this contract is to extend, and we've budgeted for that in our LTP. There's a lot of assumptions floating around this table that it's going to be cheaper. We don't know that. We actually may end up paying more, which we then haven't budgeted for in our LTP. The other thing I think about this contract that's very important is the relationship building with the appropriate staff and council, and that does take time. And I think if we go to a new supplier, it will take 18 months to 2 years to bed that relationship in. And during that time, I think we'll see a few hiccups. I think playing it safe, we know what we've budgeted, we know how much it costs, and that's what we should stick with for the next 2 years.
Councillor Brown.
I'm the same as Councillor Ellis. We know what they're doing. I don't think you will get it any cheaper for the next 2 years. All things are going up, so I'm against the motion.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Yes, I speak against the motion. As I said before, this is a maintenance program. We're looking for consistency, and HEB have been improving their quality of work, so I'm confident that will continue.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I'm going to speak against the motion as well, and the reason for that is the relationship building. And I just remember when the contract changed to HEB, it took a long time to sort of build that relationship, and I feel that we're only at year 3. We probably just need to hang on for a little bit longer, and renewing it for 2 years would be better.
Did some numbers. I haven't put the motion yet. Let's speak to it. As I spoke before, the contract would be on notice. They need to lift the performance. The $11 million per year is a lot of money. Will we get a better deal? Not sure. Won't know until you tender. Yeah, I'm going to speak. I'm going to vote for the motion. And now I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cast a tied vote, so the chair will have a casting vote, and the decision will be that we retender the roading contract. Anyone like to record their vote against? We've got Councillor Ellis, Lovett, McMillan and Lane, Abraham and Councillor Todd, all 5 recording against, who voted against. Thank you for that. Next next item is number 8. Terms of Reference Three Waters Committee. Tony, welcome. And this is a new committee being set up to monitor compliance and program of Three Waters, drinking wastewater and stormwater, giving more focus on these waters, because no matter what happens, waters will be changing in the next wee while. We have to have our plan delivered or produced and delivered by September next year. So water will be changing. So if this governance committee was set up, it will be partially giving it that governance which it's going to get, whether it be by council or whether it be by CCO. It won't be the same. So here's perhaps one step forward for governance. Councillor, any questions, Councillor? Anything further to add? Sorry, Tony.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Any questions, Councillor?
Thank you, through the chair. Just, so the recommendation is to appoint 5 councillors. Is there any reason why it is 5 councillors and not 3 or 4 or the whole council or?
Thank you, through the chair. So the standing committee does, the standing orders do allow for council to have it could be the full council on the committee, or it could be a delegation of 3. So what we went with was based on the audit and risk subcommittee of council. It has 5 members, the mayor is ex officio, and then an external party. So we use that as the basis for proposing this to you, but it is entirely council's decision if you'd like more or less.
Yeah. And I guess even if the appointed councillors, if we do have 5 appointed councillors, similar to the audit and risk committee, any councillor can come along, they just don't get voting rights. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Councillor Cameron, questions?
Thank you. Yes, I have a question. I'm looking at the terms of reference. When we set this up, and my communication with the mayor subsequent to this was that the idea of this committee was to ensure that our activities in the long-term plan and to ensure that were being undertaken and that things were being done in the freshwater space and the drinking water and the wastewater and the stormwater, as per what our expectations are in a timely fashion. When I read the terms of reference, it implies to me that it's more about the future beyond the activities, but more about the future decision making, understanding what's going to happen under local water done well and government direction. Have I misunderstood the mandate with regards to this committee, please?
Thank you, through the chair. The Three Waters Committee is effectively to provide oversight to council's work program in drinking water, wastewater and stormwater. The purpose, as we've stated it, is that it provides oversight of the district's activity, the Three Waters infrastructure program and services in a manner that promotes the current and future interests of the community. That is just in line with the Local Government Act. This is also based on a former committee that the council used to have called the Infrastructure Services Committee. So we went back to those terms of reference, and their job was based in and around the long-term plan.
So it's really a regulatory and watching type of committee to make sure, for example, that e.g. Ocean Farm is undertaken as per the standards and in a timely fashion as per a long-term plan and funding. Is that correct?
Through the chair, the way in which we envision the actual agenda being prepared is the information you receive through the activity briefing for the Three Waters activity right now would form the basis of the agenda for this group.
Okay, thank you.
Compliance is one of its main things. Make sure we get compliant.
I was just I'm going to refer through Mr Chairman, to page 22, where it does, the actual terms of reference does contemplate that its role is to consider and review matters of work programme, compliance, service delivery and forward planning in its sphere of business. And there's no, and quite deliberately, no specific mention of local water done well or the future structure of entity in and around the water. It's about the work programme. So that was the intent. If we can make that clearer, then let's do that. But it wasn't the intent that this is focused on local water done well or reform or restructuring. It's about the work programme.
When, in response to that, when you look at point 1, the current situation in response to the government's local water done well project.
Which page are you on for point
18.1.
Oh, sorry, I was referring to the terms of reference.
Yeah, I know, but I'm looking at the background and they are talking about that. So you can understand my confusion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but the terms of reference are really clear. There's no reference to it.
Councillor Wilson?
Yes, I'm quite happy with that because I did, my notes were, I understand this is around performance, consent compliance, achieving forward work programs, not structure of our Three Waters assets. And that's exactly what the Chief Executive said, so, yeah.
Further questions? No, Councillor Cameron?
Can I nominate somebody for
No,
the
what are
committee?
questions? No further questions? Thank you, Tony. Now, members for the group. I did circulate a recommended list, but council decides who would like to be on it. And my recommendation was Alice, Todd, Hooper, Mackler, McMillan as a recommendation, but happy to, for anyone, as long as you decide who needs to go on.
I would like to nominate Councillor Lovett. I think, in defence of Councillor Lovett, she has consistently talked about Ocean Farm, and I think she has a very good understanding of what's required around that, and I'd like to nominate Councillor Lovett to be on this committee.
Councillor Cameron, you'll need to state the other 4 councillors as well.
Oh, you want me to state the other 4?
Well, it would fill the gaps in.
Well, I think anybody that puts a hand up, as Tony said, it can go from the whole council to a 3. So I think anybody that puts a hand up and wants to do it should be able to.
You're recommending one, you need to recommend more.
I recommend Councillor Millen, Councillor Brown, Councillor Todd, Councillor Hooper, Councillor Mackle, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Ellis and Councillor Cameron. So I'm recommending the whole lot. If you come down to that.
We haven't got the ability to have the whole
Well,
lot.
we have. Tony said it can be the whole committee, 3 to 10. Is what she
Okay,
said.
let's run with that then.
That's what I'm recommending.
Councillor Mackle.
Love it.
Councillor Cameron has recommended the whole council.
Yeah, she recommended Councillor Lovett to,
The whole
yeah,
council is
okay,
what she
well, I'm prepared to step aside for Councillor Lovett.
Well, you wouldn't need to. Under Councillor Cameron's recommendation, the whole council would be on this committee.
Yeah.
Councillor McMillan.
I was just going to ask, is there a seconder to Councillor Cameron's
Yeah.
recommendation?
Yeah, Councillor Cameron's recommended that every councillor be on this committee. Is there a seconder for that?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah, we'll move into parts. Yeah. So that's got the names of every councillor on the committee. So now there's the recommendation there, and I'll take them in 5 parts. The first part is council establishes a Three Waters Committee as a committee of council, and that was moved by Councillor Cameron. Councillor Cameron gave us the names. So we now have the names on there. Now we need to move in a second for the recommendation.
For the whole, sorry, for the whole 5 parts?
Whole 5 parts. I'll move the recommendation of the 5 parts, and we'll take them one by one. The second for that, Councillor Ellis. We'll deal with the first one. Council establishes a Three Waters Committee as a committee of council. Debate.
I'll second that.
Councillor Lowe?
I'll second that.
No. I'm putting the first recommendation, number 1. Council establishes a Three Waters Committee as a committee of council. Councillor Cameron, speaking to that one point.
I support this in terms of the whole council being involved. I think this is a pivotal part of
What we're
council
asking
operations.
here is, do you want a committee?
Yes.
That is the question right now. Do you want a
Yes.
Three Waters Committee?
I'll abstain until I hear argument.
We haven't voted yet, so we're just hearing for or against. Councillor Wilson.
I supported the establishment of a Three Waters Committee, as this will help us understand, because the government has told us that we're not complying and we're not doing things right. We believe we are, and this will help us delve into that. Everybody understand what our consents are and if we're non-compliant at an earlier stage than perhaps we've understood, so that when staff come to us and management come to us with recommendations, it's not a surprise. We understand why that recommendation has happened and fully endorse it then. It should add strength to our Three Water decision making.
Liz.
Thank you. I speak in support of this, and I'm probably an older councillor where I've sat on the service delivery committee, and we did have quite in-depth reports, etc., on water, and I think it's timely that we probably go back to that. We do have our activity reports at the moment where we can ask a lot of questions, but I think this is just going another step further to get good governance over the Three Waters.
Speakers for or against? I put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. We now have a Three Waters Committee. The second one is the council adopts the terms of reference for the Three Waters Committee, which is on page 22. Speakers for or against? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, does number 2, would that come after number 3, because within the terms of reference you have the names of the councillors?
Good point. So we'll go to number 3, then we come back to number 2, because the terms of reference may change with the numbers. We'll go to number 3, and that is that council appoints council to the Three Waters Committee. Speakers for or against? Councillor Cameron.
I speak in favour of this, obviously, because I suggested it. I think it's important that we all understand how we're progressing with regards to our key infrastructure projects, and we all have a handle on that, as we all have, again, like the roading, there's a significant benefit, a significant allocation of resources to water compliance and meeting our standards, and I think the more people that are aware of that and following up on that around the council table, then that's one of our core roles, and I think we should all be involved in that.
Councillor Lovett.
I totally agree. I think everybody should be on here. We're going on a new journey, and we're all learning together, and I think it's a good grounding for everybody.
I think a committee of council on the whole of council on the committee is totally absurd. It's 5 is enough with that mere ex officio. So I'll be voting against that. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I also speak against it. Even when I saw 5, I was sort of surprised, but I could live with 5. But the whole of council, it might as well just go on their council agenda and
that's right.
We can get into a lot more depth a lot quicker with sometimes a smaller group who then report back with that.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I speak against the whole council being on this committee as well. And the reason is, at the start of the term, we're appointed to different committees. There might be 2 councillors, there might be 4, and it's our job to report back to council, and those minutes come through to the council as well. I feel that that's enough.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. I concur with the previous 2 speakers and speak against the motion.
Councillor Cameron, you haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, I have spoken about the motion. I'm just saying that in response to Councillor McMillan's comment, there is only one other committee. The others are working groups. I mean, there's halls, but essentially on the council, there's only Audit and Risk Committee, to the best of my knowledge. I don't know of another committee. There was a PCG, this big building committee or subcommittee, but I don't know of any other committees. Can I be corrected on that, please?
we do have subcommittees.
Yeah,
and
we're
we
talking
have
about
one
committees.
committee of council, which is the audit and risk,
Yeah, that's right, thank
which
you.
has a maximum of 5 members.
That's right, this is 6.
This is 10. 10 is what you're. Councillor Lover.
My thoughts would, at the very start, would you have everybody on board and delving into all our water services and what we actually do and have, and then you could, after a period, come back and just take it down to a few people, because a lot of the new councillors and that we don't understand, what is out there, what we do in all these departments, and it's really kind of getting that base knowledge and then narrowing it down and moving forward.
Councillors have been here for 2 years now.
Yeah, but
Should
we
understand
don't
what's
often
going on.
talk about a lot of stuff.
We haven't the ability to drop back down in a period of time. We will have 1 year, and then a new council will decide whether this committee carries on or not. Won't be this council decides. But further speakers for or against a committee of 10. We'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? The motion's lost. That item is lost. So now we need to name some peoples to go on that committee. 5. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I will move that council appoints 5 councillors to the Three Waters Committee. Councillor Lovett, Councillor Ellis, Councillor Hooper, Councillor Todd, and am I allowed to nominate myself?
Councillor
McMillan.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Brown, seconder. Move Councillor McMillan, seconded Councillor Brown for those 5 names on there. Any debate? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. That is now the committee. So then we can go back to number 2, which is the council adopts the terms of reference for the Three Waters Committee, with those names now included. Speakers for or against? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 4, that council appoints councillor as chair of the Three Waters Committee. Need to elect a chair. Councillor Todd,
I'll move Councillor Ellis be the chairman.
seconder. Councillor Hooper. Speakers for or against? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Ellis is the chair. And item number 5, appointment number 5, that the Three Waters Committee is included in the council's loco delegation system. Councillor.
Yeah, what is that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's the delegations system. It just records the way in which all the parts of the various council parts that make up the council organisation work together. So you've seen that local delegations manual through the audit and risk committee. It's just now that this new committee exists, we just have to include it in that system. Yeah, that's the name of the actual program.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Done. Thank you. Next item we might take Kylie. Up to there. Business Canterbury, Kylie Charteris, please come forward. Hamish, you might like to introduce Kylie and her subject for us, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as Kylie comes forward, we engaged with the Chamber of Employers or Business Canterbury now in Christchurch through a program that they were offering their members called Canterbury Trusted. And we have from time to time talked about having a mechanism for council to check in with how we're performing, in addition to the resident survey and some of the other mechanisms that we already conduct. And the Business Canterbury model seemed like a really useful addition to the way in which we're checking our own connections and performance with our community. And so we, through Tony Durham, engaged with Business Canterbury to see what was required and to go through the process with them as to how we might fare under that microscope, and that process has gone really well. And we're at the point where Kylie is, well, hopefully, she's here to share some good news but explain a little more about that program for councillors' benefit, because it was something we were doing in the background that councillors probably didn't have a great deal of visibility until the point of where we're at today.
Right, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, to push your right button. Do you have a presentation, PowerPoint, or?
I don't.
No, that's fine.
So this is really just a hello everyone. So I'm Kylie Charteris, representing Business Canterbury. I am the Canterbury Trusted Lead, so I have gone through this process for Ashburton District Council the whole way through. So to give you a little bit of background, as you're aware, Business Canterbury is there to do its best to support its members, listens to its members, and grow and support the community around it in the Canterbury region. So including down here for you guys, which is great to be able to come here and do this in person. This Canterbury Trusted Award was born out of feedback from our members. They wanted to be recognised as providing best practice and leadership within the community. So Canterbury Trusted came out of that to recognise those leaders within the region. The process is quite robust and rigorous. You do go through an expression of interest and a business assessment. So the representatives from Ashburton District Council have done a self-assessment that covers governance, strategy, financial planning, modelling, people and culture, corporate social responsibility and sustainability, brand reputation, customer service. So it really covers the whole organisational health and audit process within the organisation. From that stage, we actually go into a very in-depth reference process. So we have actually reference checked employees, we've reference checked your suppliers, we've reference checked your customers, so your constituents in the region. So we have got feedback from all of them and got responses as to how they think things are going and how they think Ashburton District Council is performing. So I'm very pleased to announce that you have passed this with flying colours. So I am here to present you with your Canterbury Trusted certification or certificate. And although, you know, this really goes to show the transparency with your processes, how robust they are, how you are supporting your people, and not just your people within the organisation, but your people in the community. All of these things are incredibly important. And as you know, business owners, employees, representatives, you will understand that not every business or organisation actually supports and follows best practice within the community. So it really is fantastic to share good news stories and be able to stand up proud and hand on heart say that you do that for your community. So it's a wonderful thing. At Business Canterbury, we're very proud to be able to present this to you. In the interest of transparency, I cannot be transparent and tell you exactly what was said. However, some of the key themes that did come out were you know, the ease of actually working with you and working with the people here, really responsive and respectful of feedback and the information that they provide, the relationships that they have, and obviously the family first culture that you encourage. So everybody feels that this is a really forward thinking council, and you know, we didn't hear any bad feedback or any room for improvement. Although what was really refreshing as well is that people within the organisation were very aware of the improvements to be made, and again that reflects your best business practice in looking at continuous improvement and upholding those values in the community. So congratulations, a good place to be and to go and celebrate over afternoon tea. I would like to, actually, here is your certificate, but I also have some decals that you can all put on your cars so that you can promote it around the community. Obviously, you will have some more Business Canterbury people down here tomorrow, and we do have a Connect After 5 event at Smoke tomorrow afternoon if anybody would like to join and just mingle with some of the other people within our organisation, and obviously business owners within the community that we are working very closely with. I also have a box in here of just a few little goodies, so I will leave that to you, Mr. Mayor, to share as you like, or maybe I should give it to Tony.
Oh, no, leave it with me, I think. It's just the second door on the left, pop it in there.
But I'd love to get a photo, if I could, of you receiving your award. And again, congratulations. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, we might go to some questions.
About
first.
that.
Just one
Yes.
question, Kylie, how many people did you talk to get the information?
Well, we ended up speaking to about 9, which I think is a fairly good sample.
Councillors' questions. Well, if no further questions, we might stop for the presentation photo and then we'll adjourn for a cup of tea. Thank you. Councillor Millen.
Not a question for Kylie, but just something else. And Kylie, I'll just take a few minutes to recognise an important milestone. And the Mayor mentioned that we have a year left, but that also means that our Mayor Neil has reached 20 years of service with Ashburton District Council, and we normally do the staff recognition about now, so we have one for you. And it's hard to believe that in October 2004 you were first elected to council. Then it was the Rakai Ward. You were successfully re-elected as councillor representing the Eastern Ward from 2007 to 2016, and then represented the Ashburton Ward from 2016 until 2019. And then since then, our district has been well served by you as our Mayor. So on behalf of councillors and everyone here, I'd like to thank you for your support and leadership, and Hamish will present you with a certificate.
Thanks very much for that, Liz. Councillors, staff, it's 20 years have gone quick. I got here, I had a different colour here, I had a bit more of it, the eyes were better, 10 k's lighter, but it's been a journey, it's been a great journey, and I love what I do, so yeah, it's well done, thank you for that recognition. Yeah, so we'll break now for a cup of tea. Oh, we'll just do that one, yeah. afternoon tea break, and we're moving on to item number 9, which is the community grants and funding 24-25. And who have we got? Tony. And we have a report there on page 23. Anything further to add, Tony?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Questions, councillors? Just one question. This monies, is it the bike trail that's in Methven itself? Is that where it's going? Is that where it's... Or is it the one up the mountain?
The one up the mountain.
One up the mountain, right. Any questions, councillors? If not, there's a recommendation there.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Councillor McMillan, Councillor Brown, any debate? Thanks, Tony. Right, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Gets carried. Thank you. Item number 10, submission to the Regional Public Transport Plan. Tony, and the submission is there. Any further to add, Femke?
Thank you. No, nothing further to add.
Questions, councillors? I just have one question. In this submission, what are we asking for? Are we asking for anything? And point number 11 sort of touches on asking for something.
Thank you, through the chair. No, we aren't asking for anything specifically. We're saying that we would want to see continued support of Total Mobility Scheme and Community Vehicle Trust within the district, and that point 11 does come the closest to suggesting that we would like consideration of a public transport option for Ashburton, but we don't know what that looks like yet. We appreciate we've still got work to do.
Councillor Todd.
Oh, okay, sorry. I knew it wasn't me. Just on point 11, I just wondered whether the wording was strong enough if we're keen to go down the path of public transport, whether we suggesting that it be considered whether it's strong enough, whether it should be prioritised or it should be, give it more direction. That was my only thought. How, if we're keen on doing it, then we should be pushing a bit harder, maybe.
We can do it, council's direction.
Yep, hopefully we'll get some. We will. Councillor Cameron.
Oh, thank you. Is this in response to the motion we discussed at a council meeting 2 meetings prior from Leslie Symington's work, where she wanted an endorsement for further initiatives into the public transportation in the district?
No, this is a submission on the Regional Public Transport Plan. We're writing a report based on public transport options for Ashburton, following on from that, so that's got to come to council still, on options and costs.
That's right.
Yeah, that's still got to come to council, yeah.
But I think part of that, correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, part of that was that we were going to support her application for public transport, like a whatever came out of that consultation. Was that right, Liz? Weren't we looking at that? Oh.
Yeah, part of that, but I think this is slightly separate because this is the regional transport plan, I'm guessing. So, from what I thought, that workshop, the outcome was that Mark had to go back and sort of see if there was any funding available, how a trial would work, and where we would go to from there. So I do have a question, if that's okay.
Just while we're on that point, this is a 10-year plan. Should we be suggesting that we are included in this regional public transport plan in more detail than what we are? Because I think we get a reference for total mobility, and that's about it, I think. That even along the lines of, we're looking at developing a public transport in Ashburton, and this being a 10-year plan, we need some words in there to suggest that we could be becoming part of it or something like that.
Yeah, I think we're part of the region, so that would be the case. In terms of the overall public transport in the Canterbury region, I think we're such a small part that whether we want to do something or not won't have a big impact on it. And so if we want some funding, regionally, then we haven't got any at the moment. So it is looking a year down the track anyway, unless we fund it ourselves. So it's not necessarily then part of the plan anyway. So just looking at it regionally, I don't think we're a big part of it, but we should be because we're part of the region.
Yeah, so should we say that in our submission?
Yeah,
we're not part of it yet, but we want to be.
Through the chair, we could look to strengthen point 11
Yeah,
along those lines,
Yeah.
if everyone's happy.
Liz?
Thank you. I'm just on point 6 under the Community Vehicle Trust. There's just a wee spelling mistake there under important, the service is important. And all of that information is correct. I don't know whether you would like to add that we now have 2 vehicles that we use. And I was also just under points 7, it says we currently have around 12 volunteers. It sounds like it's sounds like it's a council run service, so I don't know if I'm being picky. Our vehicle trust met yesterday and we are going to put in a submission also, and we'll reference that we support the council submission. So just, it's minor, but I just thought I'd bring it up.
Thank you. We'll make those changes in point 6 and point 7.
Councillor Cameron?
I thought we were waiting for more research before we say that we want to have public transportation, because we weren't sure of the need and we weren't sure of the scope and we weren't sure of the cost. Have I misunderstood our last discussion and the discussion with Leslie and our steering group chats? I think that was what we were doing, waiting for some more in-depth analysis on that.
Tony?
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Cameron, you're correct. So that's the report that Mark is bringing back to council to consider in terms of what the next step looked like following the workshop, which was to talk about the actual survey results that were found. With this submission, we won't be able to specifically ask for this widget in this year at this cost because we aren't there yet. But I think by signalling that we would like to be included, we're looking at options for ourselves, then that will signal up to the region that we could be involved in public transport at some point within this 10-year plan, and we'd like to not be forgotten. With regard to your question earlier around a letter of endorsement that we sent, that was for the ageing strategy, which we gave about 2 weeks ago, I think, or 2 council meetings ago.
I just found it in the old council minutes. Yeah.
Yes, so we did that for Leslie to make an application to the Ministry for Elderly People. So thank you.
So I would push back, if I may. Oh, is it not conversation? I'll wait till conversation time.
Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. Is it correct that we have no budget in our LTP for public transport for the next 10 years?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
We have total mobility, which is sort of public transport, and the community trust monies.
Is that in our budget, Tony?
No, that's in the Environment Canterbury budget.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Lovett?
Just going back to Mark and doing the work you're doing, will you be talking to the volunteer sector to see what is happening out there with all the services they're providing that links into all this as well? We had that survey, but it was based on the, like I call it the paid services, what they're doing, but there's a whole big sector out there that's doing voluntary carting people to hospital appointments or town or whatever. You know, I'm talking Rotary and the Lions and Age Concern and all that. Will that become all integrated into all this?
Well, the short answer is no. Public transport would be separate from that, and on top of that, because all that volunteer work and the work by those groups still needs to continue, whether there's a bus doing a circuit or a My Way type public transport or anything like that. They still need to have all that other services there, because it won't cover everything. So.
Right.
Councillor Cameron?
I think Sarah Wiley in her report, initial research, looked at all that. Yes, she did. I'm pretty confident she did. And so that will be incorporated when that comes, when we have a more detailed analysis of that when it comes, if and when it comes to council.
And I'd just like to respond that when the Community Vehicle Trust was set up, all that was looked at as well, so that nothing overlapped. So that's why the Community Vehicle Trust vehicle does not drive into Christchurch Hospital, because there's already other services that do that.
Good. Is it, you're planning on, or are we planning on attending the hearing for and submitting this, speaking to the submission? It's silent on it.
We will follow up if there is an option to present at a hearing or not.
I know there's a hearing because I'm on the other side
You're on
of
the
it.
other side of it.
The Regional Transport Committee.
There we go.
Yeah.
Entirely up to council whether you'd like to present in person or not.
If they want to present in person.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Councillor McMillan will be doing the presenting of it. Yeah,
We'll include that in the submission also.
yeah. Anything further, councillors? The recommendation.
Quick question. Does it make a difference if you present in person, do you think? What are the, like, do you think that would make it more impactful? If we're presenting really nothing, we're just presenting keep us in mind, which is essentially the analysis, will that make a meaningful difference?
Well, you sit on hearings, you can answer that question. No, you don't, but you sit around this table, which is the same process. Tony?
Through the chair, the benefit it does allow is if there's any points of clarification or to impress your points in a different way than just in the written word, the conversation can always be useful.
It does give the opportunity to question the submitter on, as you say, clarification, which is always good. Get the real story. Thank you. Recommendation, no more questions. Recommendation there. Councillor Ellis is moving.
Yeah.
Second, Councillor McMillan. Put the motion to debate. Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Thanks, team. Number 11, standing orders amendment. Joiners members joining remotely counting as a quorum. Read that. Looks fairly straightforward by Zoom and what have you. Tony, anything further to add?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Straightforward, doesn't it? Questions, councillors? Recommendation there. Someone like to move? Councillor Brown, Councillor Todd. Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Well done. This one, item number 12, which is the councillors' reports. Deputy Mayor, in-depth report there on your activities in the last month, which is good. Any questions for the Deputy Mayor? Nope. There's a recommendation there that we receive the Deputy Mayor's report, so we'd like to move.
Oh, no.
Councillor Lovett, Councillor Cameron, all in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Over to page, item number 13, page 42, the Mayor's report. Just an update on the 13.1. There was a election for the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs for the person to chair that, that meeting, that committee, and Alex Walker was elected, notified yesterday that she was, and she's the Mayor of Central Hawke's Bay. Questions of the Mayor's report? I'll move that we receive the Mayor's report. Seconder, Councillor McMillan. All in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Thank you.
I did have a question. On the 4th of October, did you have that meeting with Simon Bridges and James Cagle?
Yes, we did. In Christchurch, the most mayors from Canterbury were there. He'd been for a tour around Waimakariri and Christchurch. He'd looked at the Pages Road bridge that the Christchurch City want to replace, and looked at the not Belfast, the Woodend bypass. Yeah, when he looked at that, where that would go. So we gave him, we all had opportunity to speak to him, being chair of NZTA. I talked to him about the bridge and the funding, and he listened. understood, but they get what they get in money, so it's more something for the Minister, I think, of Transport around the total funding, so, which that is progressing as well. Further questions? If not, takes us to the end of business in the open meeting. So we'll move on to public excluded. So move a second for that. Councillor Ellis, Councillor Brown. All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Thank you. Thank you for your attendance. People who are listening from home. Enjoy.
I